I am so looking forward to conducting the 9th Masterworks program this season with the Jacksonville Symphony, entitled Mendelssohn's Scottish Symphony. It's an exciting and theatrical program full of colour and passion. The concert opens in a burst of energy with Richard Strauss's flamboyant tone poem, Don Juan. It's a lavish depiction of literature's greatest sexual hedonist. Don Juan is an arrogant, courageous, and notorious womanizer. But this is no musical porn show. There is magic in the way Strauss tells the story. The heroic, muscular, and grand music that represents Don Juan is coupled with music of incredible longing and tenderness. But in the end, Don Juan is killed in a duel, and Strauss evocatively depicts the fatal sword strike and the Don's final breaths. Ralph Vaughan Williams wrote his concerto for oboe and strings in 1943 for the oboist Leon Goossens, just after completing his famous Fifth Symphony. It's a charming and elegant work, at times playful and dance-like, and at others pastoral and nostalgic. It is an incredible showcase for the oboe soloist. It requires virtuosic technique and a sublime musical instinct to make the piece sing. We are so lucky to feature the principal oboe of the Jacksonville Symphony, Eric Olson, for these performances. Eric is one of the stars of the symphony, and I am so looking forward to working with him in a solo capacity. Mendelssohn's Third Symphony is one of my favourite pieces. It's an amazing journey from the first note to the last, full of drama and emotion. Mendelssohn was a very unusual guy compared to other composers of the 19th century, primarily because he had a very happy life, in contrast to many other composers of the era. Beethoven started going deaf in his 20s, Schumann went insane and ended up in a mental asylum, Brahms spent his life infatuated with Schumann's wife in a love affair that was almost certainly never consummated. Mendelssohn, on the other hand, lived a rather conventional life and was happily married. As a child prodigy, he had from an early age an enviable career across Europe as a composer, conductor, and soloist. There is a sunny, joyous feeling throughout much of Mendelssohn's music. He had an incredible ability to write for large forces and make the music sound light, bubbly, and effortless. His famous string octet, the violin concerto, and the incidental music from A Midsummer Night's Dream are perfect examples of this, and it's often this kind of music that we most remember Mendelssohn for. However, in the Scottish Symphony, Mendelssohn explores a much deeper and darker side of his musical personality. In 1829, Mendelssohn, who was only 20 at the time, made a trip to England and Scotland, and as part of that trip, visited Holyrood Palace in Edinburgh. In a letter, he wrote, "In the evening twilight, we went today to the palace where Queen Mary lived and loved. A little room is shown there, with a winding staircase leading up to the door. Up this way they came and found Rizzio in that little room, pulled him out, and 3 rooms off there is a dark corner where they murdered him. The chapel close to it is now roofless. Grass and ivy grow there, and at that broken altar Mary was crowned Queen of Scotland. Everything around is broken and mouldering, but the bright sky shines in. I believe I found today in that old chapel the beginning of my Scottish Symphony." The symphony opens with a melancholic theme, unusually played only in the violas and oboes. The music is lonely and cold, but still solemn, just like the broken and mouldering chapel. It is a picture of the dark, grey Scottish landscape and a portrayal of Queen Mary's own personal darkness. The music then becomes fast, hushed but agitated, gradually gaining momentum and increasing intensity. It becomes a wild, restless storm. The second movement is like a Scottish folk song. It's lively and energetic. It opens with a playful clarinet solo, but soon becomes noisy, grassy, and primitive. The third movement is often considered a lament for Queen Mary. It opens as if it were a prayer, solemn, deep, and tender. The music then changes. A strident, firm, march-like rhythm appears. It's punctuated by trumpets and drums, suggesting a military procession. It feels like Queen Mary walking to her execution, frightened but strong, still with nobility. The finale opens with a fiery burst. The original title was Allegro Guerriero, which means fast and warlike. It's a musical battle. The lower strings relentlessly accent each beat, just like a quick march. The middle section is fugal, which is like a musical dialogue. Sometimes the individual voices argue, sometimes they agree. The music is frenzied and unruly, just like combat. The music almost comes to a complete stop, and then we hear music like we haven't before. Warm, calm, full of joy. Even at the end of the symphony, Mendelssohn looks back to Queen Mary. In 1830, he wrote a piece for 8-part chorus and organ, Ave Maria, or Hail Mary, and he uses this theme in exactly the same key to close the symphony. The woodwind and brass sing like choirs giving thanks after the battle. The orchestra is blazing and unstoppable. This symphony is music of the landscape and of the heart. It paints pictures dark, lonely, tender, and bright. It is a piece inspired by Scotland and Queen Mary, but it also resonates with our own experiences and our own world. Like the last line in Mendelssohn's letter, everything around is broken and mouldering, but the bright sky shines in.